That's the issue. And so we're self-conscious and all these things. And so you have two options about what to do about that. You can avoid it and be as unconscious as possible, and that involves like, you know, just willful blindness towards things that are bothering you, or things like alcohol addiction or smoking or chasing comfort and pleasure and all those things. Because it's as if like, or the other option is to become as conscious as possible, to expand it and broaden it, and that happens through like suffering and life and the experiences you go through and things you pick up along the way, and then also just like the voluntary intention to develop yourself in that way. And it's almost, I think it might have been him who made this image, or I got it from somewhere else, but it's like, I kind of imagine this young child being handed this like golden sword that could just, it can cut through anything, and it can build the most integrally strong structures, and it's like this ultimate tool that you can use through existence. And it's like that conscious, because your perception cuts, and it can perceive truth, and or it can be diluted, and so it's like, are you going to accept that and use it, or are you going to run away from it screaming? Because it's also horrifying to be self-conscious and to be so viscerally engaged with life, because it's going to kill all of us. So it's like, I know everyone's got damn good reason to be anxious, you know, and depressed about that, but it's like, then like you said before, what is it you're going to do about it? And the cool thing is, like in yoga, you know, that sword is the self. It's all in you. Like we all have that wisdom. It's the reconnection of mind and body and spirit, right? Like you have to be willing to tune into your feelings. You have to be willing to listen to that wisdom of yourself. And how do you navigate all that truth with being placed in a society that sometimes wants you to move contrary to it all? You know, and
even just the other people you might have wound up being affiliated with, they like it when you go and drink with them and smoke with them and do all these things, and when you start trying to change yourself in a positive way, they might even resent that. And it's no easy task, that's for sure.
No, and as much as it's healthy to surround yourself with like-minded people, there is a level of unhealthiness to it, because we need to be challenged and opposed, and it's we don't all want to agree.
No, exactly.
Like, it's great to have, you know, like different or the same values as the people around you, but you don't want to be in a group of people you agree with on everything. It's really dangerous.
That's like what North Korea is, or the Soviet Union was. Like, we all agree this ideological standpoint is the right way, and no one's going to question it. And if you don't sing the national anthem with enough passion, the black van rolls up and things like that. But it's one of the things that really depresses me most about some of my recent interactions, because I've been taking a rather open stand against a lot of this crazy social justice warrior nonsense going on. And so I've been getting into debates with people, and for me, debate is, you know, it's like an MMA fight with ideas. You know, it's linguistic, it's verbal, and we take our ideas and we pit them against each other, and provided both people involved are actually trying to figure out what's best and what's right, then hopefully the best and right ideas will trump the bad ones, and we'll figure it out, and we'll both leave the conversation a little more put together than when we entered it. And just conversation in general, you kind of want to assume that you know something I don't know that I need to know, and you know something that I don't know that I also need to know, and if we engage properly, then we could figure those things out. And then these people I debate with are just, they take it so personally when I'm critiquing these ideas and the philosophy, that they just resort to attacking my character as a person, and then just deleting the post, blocking me on Facebook, all this stuff. And it's like, that's not good, because they're not willing to talk, and then it's just it's not good. It freaks me out.
It's interesting too, like I've gotten curious about it, because I've had this conversation with people before, and I've you know, seen posts deleted, and I watch myself sometimes when you have these, like, something comes up that's contrary online, and this reaction of threat that happens, that my first instinct is being threatened.
And why am I afraid of disagreeing with someone? And I get curious about the fact that these lives we live online haven't taken something away from us that we should be still doing in person.
Yeah. Well, I've been, because like the conversations almost immediately hit some dead end because both sides have our arguments put together and it doesn't seem like anyone's really willing to budge that much. So I invite them on the podcast to come talk.
Yeah.
And so far, not a single one of them have taken me up on that. It's just, it's so easy to caricature somebody through a keyboard and a screen, you know? It's like, that's just, screw that person, you know? They don't even think about it as a person they're interacting with. It may as well be some robot that's just generating verbal responses or text responses. But it's because, like, I know, like, 80% of the things that they would go off saying, when you're sitting there and making eye contact with somebody, it's not so easy just to stab them in the chest like that.
I think that the internet provides an anonymity, like with road rage behind, you know, like the things that people do for road rage is less likely to occur if they were not enclosed in their car, right?
That's
you're
so
by
true.
yourself, so if you're sitting comfortably in your house, you have the like capacity to say and do anything, and it's just as if you're in front of the mirror. You don't really have to even pay attention as much to what you're doing because you don't have that face-to-face interaction. You don't get the cues, the social cues that otherwise come up in conversation. So you can just rapid fire whatever you want, and the consequences are things like this. Like nobody really wants to accept any responsibility for what they say. They just want to like dump it out there and then go to the next feed.
Yeah. And there's some kind of thing that has happened where we've been convinced there's only one right answer. So if you and I are disagreeing, someone has to be right. Someone has to be wrong. And that's the only possible thing that could happen.
Yeah.
And it's like we're having conversations about complex things. There's possibly more than one thing, but in these worlds that we're in, there's someone's right and someone's wrong. And if you say something foolish, you're proven wrong, or in the moment it's wrong, it's like erase all evidence, start over. Mm-hmm. It's instead of just celebrating that we got somewhere different and that maybe neither of us was right or wrong, but we landed somewhere new, or we agreed that both things could be right in different ways. It's this also strange idea, that there's only one right thing all the time, which again is that world where people get taken away in black vans. It's not the real world. No. Or hopefully not. Our world anyway. Yeah,
it's like, God forbid that things are nuanced and subtle and have intricate details to them, and it's like you can't really. Yeah, I totally agree. I'm just gonna say the same thing you said,
just with different words. Yeah, I know, and I don't know how to get back to it. Like, I guess we just call it out every time we see it.
That's kind of the approach I've been taking is just I try to not shy away from these kinds of conversations. And just because if I see that's like the only thing I can really do. I mean, I feel like it's the only thing any of us can do to make the world better is to make ourselves the best version of ourselves as we can and go out in the world and speak our truth and be articulate about it and be precise about it and be humble enough to update the parts that maybe don't function well or that, something I overgeneralize on or just any place that someone offers new information that updates my conceptual framework.
Yeah.
And thus a part of who I am gets better. I think that's the only thing that I can do because what am I going to do? Change other people? Like, that's foolish. I hardly have any control over what I do.
I know. Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. Like, I think we can get caught up in these huge, big, daunting task of changing the world. But I sincerely, wholeheartedly believe we're here to be the best humans we can be. That's how you enact change.
Yeah.
You be willing to be better, to be wrong, to be better after you're wrong, and then to just be honest about it in the world so that one person out of 100 might notice it and change, or nobody might, but it's not really our responsibility.
Yeah. Responsibility is you gotta start with yourself. That's just the only place to begin, and then maybe the people that inhabit the same household as you are maybe that situation improves because you're a little bit better, and then I can't see how it wouldn't have some sort of positive spiraling effect outward. But like you said, I mean, even if that's not the case, it's still no good. It's still no good to not take any of the responsibility for it, in the sense of like, man, how do I say this? You have to take responsibility for your own existence, and in a sense, that is like kind of taking ownership for the small role that I may play for the reason the world isn't the best it could be.
Yeah.
Because the fact is that I am part of it, whether I want to be or not. And so if I don't do everything I could to make my own self better, then I may as well be actively trying to make things worse. Yeah. Not just for me, but for everyone around me, because we're networked with each other like crazy.
Well, yeah, and it's remembering, like, we have come to this place of thinking that there's us and other. Mm-hmm. That you and I are different, we're separate, we're all different, we're separate from the planet, like we've completely separated ourselves.
Yeah.
It's one thing. Yes, there are tiny things, but it would be like me trying to say that this tiny cell on my skin is different than this tiny cell over here. Like, at some point, they're all part of me. Mm-hmm. They're all Nikki, and all of us are all part of this oneness. And that there isn't a separateness, and so we have to be responsible for ourselves in the sense that it is interconnected with all. With each other, with the planet, with this whole living system that is functioning. And whatever it is, part of, whether there's a whole sense to it all or not, there is a sense to what's contained in this planet. Mm-hmm. The system that is working, it all touches each other in some small way. And so we do have the power to enact change through this control of this one person. Even if it's so imperceptible, we can't ever calculate it in our lifetime and think, I did this thing. Mm-hmm. It's like that story. It's one of my favorite stories. It's so simple. It's like, there's a man walking along a beach with another guy, and he's picking up starfish. The tide's gone out, and he's picking up starfish, and he's throwing them back into the ocean. And the guy says to him, like, you're not going to make a difference. Mm-hmm. He's like, there's thousands of them. And he said, well, I made a difference to this one. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like that same thing. Like,
what level do you want to look at it from?
Right?
I mean, it's like, if I don't do my dishes every night, then my roommates are all going to have a little bit shittier of a day because they have to go down to a dirty kitchen and clean up my mess or whatever, or maybe they won't even make themselves food because they just walked in and got pissed and left because it's a mess or something. It's like, it's this weird conundrum, because one of like the fundamental axioms of the West, I think, is this, like, that the individual is divine in some way.
Yeah.
And it kind of seems to have gotten like polluted into thinking that, okay, well, I'm perfect and divine, so I should just eat as much ice cream and drink as much wine as I want and just pursue infinite, constant comfort and pleasure. And that's not what it means. I think the reason that the individual is divine is because if the individual takes up the ultimate responsibility for themselves, and then that kind of means taking responsibility for the world, or at least whatever part of it you do have control over, then that's like the salvation of the self and of the culture, and maybe more than that, I don't know. But so it's like the individualistic idea has importance to it, I think, profound importance to it, because if you completely disregard the individual, then you have like a tyrannical state, right?
Yeah.
But then if we get too narcissistic, which is like going about it in the wrong way, I think, then it's like, things like road rage, like, oh, screw that guy, he cut me off or whatever. But it's like, you gotta remember that the reason the individual has so much responsibility to take on is because of not only yourself, it is the whole culture.
Yeah.
And the role that you play in it. Because you're right, it's all connected.
Yeah. In some spirituality, it's, they think of, in actually more than one, in just different words, that, God has chosen to be reborn, to be me, to be you, to be you. So there is this celebration of this one individual experience, which is unique and beautiful and perfect. And yet it is part of a bigger whole, and it's going back to that whole, the same whole it came from. And it's, how do you find this ability to, celebrate the uniqueness of your own perspective, journey, and existence, and yet recognize that it is insignificant without the greater whole.